up a shout of praise. Oh, there's only one name. We lift up a shout. We lift up a shout. Oh, together we sing. We lift up a shout. We lift up a shout of praise. Shout of praise. Oh, there's only one name. We lift up a shout. We lift up a shout. Oh, together we sing. We lift up a shout. We lift up.
Good morning. Good morning. Here we go again. Episode 503, working our way through the book of Revelation. Good to see you guys this morning. And we are going to tackle a passage today that not only do we see another monster on the scene, but we're going to unpack something that is probably one of the most well-known things that comes up in the Bible, and this idea of the mark of the beast and the 666. People around the world, Christian, not Christian, no idea what the Bible even says. They've heard of the mark of the beast. It's weaved its way into culture and movies and dramas and stories, and it's usually always scary. It's usually always a bad thing, and we're going to find out why. And where does it come from? What is it rooted in? What's the real context? What did it actually mean? Like, there's a way to know what the mark of the beast is? Are you serious? Like, I thought it was some sort of mystical thing that would somewhere happen, and it could be this or it could be that. I'm here to tell you that we have a pretty good idea of exactly what it was, and we're going to talk about it. So let's get into it. God, we just come before you this morning, and we just want to commit this time to you in prayer. We just ask that you would be with us, that you would direct and guide our thoughts. God, to help, just ask that you would help me to say what you want me to say and not say anything that I shouldn't. Give me wisdom to speak wisely and clearly about a subject that so many people are interested in, and help me to do it justice so that I point people towards you and towards truth, and don't get in the way. And so, Lord, we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So before we dive in to everything this morning, don't forget tonight is the night that we're all going to get together. We are doing our big monthly Zoom meetup tonight. It starts at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. I'll put a Zoom link in the YouTube post section. I'll put a Zoom link in our Facebook group. I'll send another email out. There was one that went out on Saturday. In other words, I'm going to make the Zoom link radically easy to find as much as humanly possible. And I'm just excited to see everybody tonight. We're going to be celebrating 500 episodes together. Big, huge milestone. We're going to share some testimonies that have come in, some encouragement. We're going to announce winners of a bunch of prizes. We're giving away a bunch of hoodies, a bunch of hats, some sticker packs, and some surprise giveaways that you won't even know what they are unless you come to the Zoom meeting. So there you go. See you guys all tonight. Fun time of just fellowship, friendship, and connecting names and faces, maybe meeting some people, then seeing people in person that we haven't seen yet. And so looking forward to that. But before we get to that fun, we're getting into Revelation chapter 13, 11 through 18. And we are meeting another monster. And so far, just by way of refresher, we have the dragon, which is this kind of mashup of all of the first we've got the dragon, which is the beast, the Satan, the accuser, and then the dragon goes and stands on the sea shore and looks out over the ocean, and out of the abyss, across the ocean comes a a monster that's a mashup of all the monsters from Daniel chapter 7. If you want to learn more about that and see how all those things connect together, make sure you check out the study guide from yesterday from episode 502. And then today we see monster number 3. And it is pretty fascinating. And so let's just dive right into the passage and take a look at what it has to say. And then we'll do what we do. We'll circle back and unpack things, make some sense of them. All right, here we go. Revelation chapter 13, 11 through 18 goes like this. Then I saw another beast come up out of the earth. He had 2 horns like those of a lamb, but he spoke with the voice of a dragon. He exercised all authority of the first beast, and he required all the earth and its people to worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. He did astounding miracles, even making fire flash down from the sky while everyone was watching. And with all the miracles he was allowed to perform on behalf of the first beast, he deceived all the people who belong to this world. He ordered the people to make a great statue of the first beast, who was fatally wounded and then came back to life. He was permitted to give life to this statue so that it could speak. Then the statue of the beast commanded that anyone refusing to worship it must die. He required everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to be given a mark on the right hand or on the forehead, and no one could buy or sell anything without that mark, which was either the name of the beast or the number representing his name. Wisdom is needed here. Let the one with understanding solve the meaning of the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. All right. So lots going on. And if you didn't get a chance to take a look at the in-depth study guide that went out yesterday for episode 502, I would really encourage you to go back and do that, because I kind of went into some a little bit more Roman history in there. The general gist of it is that there was a couple big events that took place. Nero, who was a horrible ruler, emperor of Rome, but incredibly powerful, did some pretty crazy things, went a little bit wacko late in his life. Nero died, and not long after his death, there sort of became these legends and rumors and stories that Emperor Nero either A, never died, or B, he died, but he came back to life, or C, that like his spirit was around and he was on his way back to life. But the general idea was there was a lot of rumors that Nero had come back to life. The types of things, this is a really silly, comparison, but it's similar. The way that a lot of people said Elvis never died. And so it's getting a little bit far removed from our culture, but there's a lot of people that remember the Elvis sightings and that it was all a sham and that he never really died. Or I don't think too many people think Elvis came back to life, but that he never really died. And there would be rumors and stories about he lived here or he went over there and all these different things. So you sort of can get an idea, even from our own recent history, how a really famous person could actually die, and that there could actually be real stories and real people that believe he never really died. Okay. So same thing on a much larger scale with the Emperor Nero. There are many people that believe he either never died or he came back to life. As a result, lots of wannabe Nero people, these, leaders that wanted to, step in and go, hey, I don't know if you know this, but I'm actually Nero come back to life. And they would try to, use that, the popularity of that rumor and the fear and all the things with people. They would try to use that to leverage, weaseling their way into authority. None of them really lasted very long, but that was something that was going on at the time. This stuff with Nero, dying or coming back to life. So at the same time, Rome goes through this horrible spell of a nation. So that's the biggest powerhouse on the world platform. They have massive amount of territory. They've got infrastructure and engineering and tax collecting systems that rivaled anything that had ever been up to this point. And all of a sudden, this incredible powerhouse of a nation with all of its pomp and circumstance and authority and armies and everything, it starts to crumble from the top down. They go through a series of want to be emperors, want to be rulers. So one guy comes in, he doesn't last very long. Another guy comes in, he doesn't last very long. Another guy comes in, he doesn't last very long. And after three, like in quick succession, three emperors not being able to kind of like hold the reins of Rome and actually get the ship steered back in the right direction, bring stability, bring control. It was like just more chaos, more chaos, more chaos. The world stage was really wondering, is this the end of Rome? Like, is it going to fall apart? And along comes Vespasian, who was a famous Roman general. His troops really supported him, and his troops basically said, go take over Rome. We got your back. And so he goes and takes over Rome. He finally gets a hold of things, gets root of every, gets a grip on everything, gets, brings some stability. His son is Titus, who later becomes emperor. Titus picks up with the army where Vespasian left off, and Titus takes on finishing the task that Vespasian was doing, which was destroying Jerusalem, burning the temple, sacking the city, like all kinds of terrible stuff. So these are sort of the events going on in the world stage behind the scenes, and they, knowing a little bit of the context and the history and who the players were in the context of history at the time, helps us understand what John is relating to, what the images here represent, what they're symbolic of, and what his readers would have been thinking when they heard him talk about these things. Like yesterday when we talked about the beast coming out of the sea, it has all these heads and it has this thing and it looks like this thing. 100% they're thinking of Rome. And so now when this other beast comes up, this one is designated as not coming out of the sea, but coming out of the earth. And this beast, it's like the last monster that came out of the sea, but not quite. I don't know how to explain it, but maybe not quite as elaborate or fancy. This other one is subordinate to the monster, and so it's my way of what pictures my mind is in my mind as I'm thinking about it is you've got the dragon, who is the ultimate dark power, the Satan, the accuser, that is the ultimate source of wickedness and evil and power against God and God's people. And the Satan is employing and empowering the monster, the big monster that came out of the sea, which is Rome, the whole entire Roman Empire. And then the beast that came out of the earth, which is like the wingman to the beast that came out of the sea. And the wingman to the beast is like all the local elites, the city leaders, the city officials that actually ran the local Roman economies and cities and different things. And so just glancing back at the passage here, that this new monster that comes out of the earth has a couple of horns that look like a lamb. And he spoke with the voice of the dragon. He exercised authority of the first beast and required all the people to worship the first beast. So he comes out sort of a cheap knockoff of Jesus. It's this, at first glance, it looks like a sacrificial lamb. He has some of the right markings. It's like when we recently have spent some time in Mexico. And when you go down to Mexico and you see all the different street vendors, there are these, different sunglasses you can buy. Of course, they're Oakley's, or they're this brand, or they're that brand. And there's shoes and there's clothing, and of course, expensive leather handbags. And they all have the right, real authentic brand name on them. But when you start inspecting things a little bit, you're like, well, this brand looks like it was sewed on a little crooked. That doesn't seem like something that we would do on a $2,000 handbag, and the sunglasses, I picked them up and the sticker just fell off of the side like it was just barely put on there yesterday. So stuff like that. So it's like it looks like the real deal, but really it's kind of just a knockoff, a parody, a fake. And that's what we see with this beast coming up out of the earth. Is he's described as a bit of a parody of the lamb, a fake of the lamb in some ways, but he looks he has some attributes of the lamb. Okay. Remember, we're talking symbolism, not literal. So just hang in there. He has some attributes of the lamb, but he talks, he speaks with the authority of the beast. And so, even though it might look a little bit like, a savior, a messiah type situation, he does not speak with the authority of God. He speaks with the authority of the beast. And so, his words are on behalf of the dragon, this dark power behind the scenes. And it says that everybody had to worship the first beast, and the one that the fatal wound had been healed. There's all these miracles. I'll talk about those in a second. But then it goes on again to mention that they had to make a great statue of the first beast who was fatally wounded and then came back to life. You see the mentions over and over. There's this repetitive like reminder of the beast that almost died, the one that looked like it had a fatal wound, but it came back to life. This is Rome. This is talking about Rome on the precipice of, caving. Like it looked like for a season there, it looked like there was no recovering for Rome from its sort of top down leadership implosion. It just looked like it was falling apart. But somehow, kind of like at the last minute, here comes this new general in, and he manages to, circle the troops and calm everything, bring power, bring security again, and kind of recombobulate Rome's power and authority. So it's like it looked like it was going to die, but it recovered from what seemed like was a fatal wound to their nation. And so that's getting mentioned symbolically. And then the new beast that comes out of the earth. So remember, we got dragon, big beast out of the sea, small beast out of the earth. Dragon, big beast, little beast. That's kind of a way to keep these things straight. So the little beast is going, everybody has to worship the big beast, the dude that came out of the sea, this power and authority, which is Rome. So the little beast represents the local governing officials, the local elites in the Roman Empire and the Roman cities. Something that was really common in the Roman world at the time that John's audience would have been very familiar with was Rome worship, emperor worship, and cities competing for Rome's money and Rome's attention and Rome's sort of stamp of approval and elevation. So it would look like this. You get one city over here, and they would commission a new statue of Emperor Vespasian. And they would say, our statue is going to be the biggest one that any city's ever built of this in our new emperor. And we're going to have this particular garden around it. And it's going to be a sight, to behold the senses. And another city gets wind that the city across the way is going to go big on a statue of Vespasian. And so the city officials in this city go, oh, we're not going to be one up by them. We're going to build a statue to Vespasian and Titus and this monumental structure to symbolize Titus's power and authority. And, we're going to honor him, his son, and even future generations. Like we're going to go big. We're going to, celebrate emperors that haven't even come yet. And then other cities would hear, and so on and so on it would go. And so there was these constant, really sort of competitions to see who could be the most Roman of Roman cities. And it's like patriotism, ridiculously over the top. And all of it behind the scenes is driven by uh, a hunger for power and authority and to oppress people and to control and all sorts of wicked and evil stuff that's driving these decisions and these behaviors. So here's what's going on in the city. So it says that the little beast, the guy that came up out of the earth, he's forcing everyone to worship the big beast. So this represents the local leaders, the elites that are putting all this effort into making Roman cities worship Rome. And here's the rest of the story. So it says that uh, so he was so then the signs, the issues of they were allowed to do all these miracles and even make the statues speak, and anybody that commanded to refuse it or anybody that refused to worship it must die. So there's lots and lots of stories recorded in history by writers that are not biblical, not Christians. They're just like Roman historians or other historians of the time. There's other, they call them extra biblical sources, so sources that are outside the Bible. And so when we know that there are outside Bible sources in history, documents and historical things that have been found in archaeology that tell stories that line up with events that the Bible describes, it helps give validity to the Bible's trueness. Like if the Bible said this and then other people outside the Bible said it, it helps give it more weight. So some of these sources would write stories about how these cities would create these statues to worship emperors or different gods or goddesses, and they would get real creative with things that they would do to manipulate the temple area or the statue itself to somehow like put a thing up through the carve up through the stone a channel so that they could secretly behind there somewhere have fire and smoke would go up through the statue and out, and so it would look like the statue was actually puffing or breathing, or had smoke coming out of it. And so of course, to the untrained eye outside in a world that doesn't live with computer graphics and special effects, and all of this was unheard of and unfamiliar, this could easily garner your fear and admiration and attention, like, oh my gosh, look at what's going on over there. And there was a number of other things that would happen. There's records of a goddess, oh goodness, now I'm trying to remember her name. Maybe Athena, I'd have to go back and double check, I'm drawing a blank right now, but there was a goddess who at the temple, kind of in a like a basement room underneath the temple area in these rocks, there was noxious gases like sulfur, like a hot springs or some sort of gas that would come up out of the ground. And if you went down in the room beneath the temple area, you basically would get sort of high and go on some sort of a trip, is what the historian said. So they would have these women, these prophetesses that supposedly could speak these things. And so they would go down and they would, inhale these fumes and go on these crazy trips. And people would come in the room above and talk to the statue of the goddess and say, hey, tell me, are my crops going to be good this year? Or is my kid's going to have children? And the goddess would, weave out some story from beneath the room and it would echo in there, and there was all sorts of interesting things. And of course, so it was like, whoa, I'm getting an answer from the goddess. Meanwhile, you're just hearing crazy dreams and made up stories from somebody that's forced really into slavery to get high and tell thing. It just bizarre stuff. But all of these things played into these signs and miracles and crazy things that they made these statues and temples and gods and goddesses do to make them believable. So here's what's going on. You got Rome, all kinds of power, almost died, comes back to life, so to speak, as a nation with a different ruler. And Then you have the local cities and leaders and, empowering and elevating Rome. Make Rome awesome, make Rome awesome. Everybody worship Rome, everybody worship Rome, everybody worship the Caesar. And if you don't, and here comes the mark of the beast stuff, okay? And if you don't, here's what's going to happen. So verse 16 over there, he required everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to be given the mark on the right hand or on the forehead, and no one could buy or sell anything without that mark, which was either the name of the beast or the number representing his name. Take note, this is John telling Christians in the early church as he's writing this out. Wisdom's needed here. Let the one with understanding solve the meaning of the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So there's a thing called cryptology, and it's essentially this idea that in many cultures and different dialects, letters and numbers, letters are associated with numbers. And so it would be like, we don't have this in our culture really, other than some kind of crazy conspiracy theory people, but it's not really a part of our culture. It's certainly nothing that we learn in school, but it would be like if on our alphabet, A equals 1, B equals 2, 3, or C equals 3, D equals 4, and so forth and so on. And so then if you saw a series of numbers written out, you would get your, secret decoder ring out, and you would go, oh, D equals this, and D equals this. And then you would, based on what the numbers say, you would find their accompanying letter and see what it says. Well, this was common in the ancient world. And in Hebrew, the letters and symbols in the Hebrew alphabet had numeric value, and there was several well-known formulas at the time in this time of the early church that were used to determine what numbers would mean in the form of words, and simultaneously the opposite. What words spelled out, what number would they be, right? This was something that was common in their culture. And there's lots of research and lots of scholars that support the idea that the formulas used at the time would have taken 666 as spelled out in the Hebrew language, or with Hebrew symbols or numbers. It would have worked out to spell the name Nero Caesar. And so there's lots of support among scholars that literally what John was talking about is that the mark of the beast, which is this 666, which represents the name of a man, and the name of the man it represented was Nero Caesar. And so it was speaking about a real thing in real context at a real time in a culture that was full of rumors that Caesar didn't really die and had he come back to life. And you get a sense that all of this is sort of going like, Rome's taken the stage, the world stage. Rome is demanding worship, and the local elites, the leaders at a local level in charge of the Roman cities, are supporting, they're holding up this whole system of worship Rome. And in the middle of this, they come up with this idea that if you want to buy, sell, and trade, if you want to, in other words, survive in their culture, in their community, you need to take the mark of the beast. And the mark of the beast represents Nero Caesar. In other words, we're going to perpetuate the fear mongering. We're going to perpetuate the rumor mill that Nero didn't really die, that somehow he's yet to come. Somehow he has some still, authority, some way, shape, or form in Rome. And you have to, kind of wear his name as your badge in order to trade in the marketplace. And it's a pretty, it's just a really almost cruel way of continuing to manipulate and control people down to the just mundane tasks of, buying potatoes or trading for this or trading for that. And so the reality is, that's exactly what was being talked about. Does that mean that there's no such thing as the mark of the beast in the current world or in the future? if we look at the principle at play, the issue for Christians in the first century was, who do you worship and where do you draw the line on compromise? Can you sell in this market here? Can you sell in that market here? Can you support this thing? So in our modern world, like, the mark of the beast, maybe take it less literally. This is just me thinking out loud. Maybe take it less literally, like an actual physical microchip in your temple or whatever people are worried about. Maybe take it less literally and think more practically. As a believer, what do you align yourself with? What do you sort of uh, what do you sync up with and support by association? Do you buy certain brands even though they're made by oppressive people that do horrible stuff to kids? Do you support a certain bank? Do you like, at what point do you go, I'm not willing to engage in that, because engaging in that actually somehow supports it, and by supporting it I'm sort of like putting their jersey on, like, I'm for bank A, or I'm for brand B, and you're sort of wearing their brand. And is that a brand you want to be behind? Now, that's just one way to think about it that kind of brings it to life in the real world that we're living in. So lots to unpack in this one. As always, there's a little bit more in the description to the video, but if you want the full meal deal, the in-depth study guide with images and questions and discussion prompts, more depth on like what might you actually do to apply this in your life, be sure you sign up for the daily study guides. There's a link for those in the description for the video today. So if you haven't got signed up for those yet, to get the study guides delivered for free to your email inbox every day, you can go find it in there. So let me jump over here in the comments and see what you guys have cooking this morning. There's Miss Julie. Good morning to you. Hope you're doing great. We got Nancy. She says, hey, I'm playing catch up on the book, but just want to say thanks for explaining the book that was written for Christians of that time and not about tomorrow. Like, there are principles and things that are like warnings and wisdom that stands the test of time. Certainly, much of what John had in mind was for real people at a real time and a real place. So love it. All right, let's see here. Let's see. Oh, Jerry, Jerry was asking about the crowns. Glitz is giving him some help. For those of you that happen to be new or haven't noticed in the live chat, there's these funny little purple crowns that show up. It's something that YouTube does. Has nothing to do with YJJ. It has nothing to do with me giving people crowns, just by way of reminder. So there you go. Hey, Glitch, she says, hey, we did that back in the old days as kids to send secret messages in school. They grew up to be some of those grew up to be cryptologists in the US Navy. That's cool. Using numbers as letters and writing their own codes and, just having fun secret decoder things. Let's see, what else do we have cooking in here? Jerry, good to see you on here. Haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're doing good. I know you're saying you just really struggle sometimes with sleep and back pain and all that stuff, but I appreciate you tuning in, and hopefully you're able to catch lots of the replays and all that good stuff. We've got other people praying for one another. Dave here, this couldn't be more true. Some people will believe in anything except the truth, and not the truth, right? All right, there you go, Mark. That's the one I was trying to think of. Thanks. Oracle of Delphi. Goodness, I could not, that would not come to me for whatever reason. The one I was talking about, that where there's a room underneath the temple and the noxious gas and it makes them high and they do some sort of weird trip and tell people their future or whatever it is. It's called the Oracle at Delphi. There's lots of stuff you can look up on it. There are still some archaeological ruins of it, so that's something you could look into. It's just, I'm not saying that that's specifically what was in view, but it's an example of the types of things that were used to manipulate temples, gods, goddesses, statues, to try and make the average person think this thing is somehow supernatural, when really it was just a parlor trick from people behind the scenes. So lots of interesting things to learn about there. All right, let me zip down here. We got Daniel. Thank you for this lesson. And I'm seeing the time. We're pretty long, so we better wrap it up and get you guys off and running. Lots to unpack in this one. Be sure to go check out the study guide. It will come out in the next hour or two. I've got it started, but have a little bit of work yet to do on it to get it polished up and ready for public consumption. All right, let me pray. Send you guys on your way for the day. God, thanks so much, as always, for your word. Thanks for this community, and thanks for the people that have done the hard work of studying history, deciphering languages and translating things so that we have just this wealth of information available to learn from. And we're not just looking at Revelation by itself, scratching our heads. We get to stand on the shoulders of those that have put in countless hours of research, on the ground and in the books, so that we can learn and discern from them. And I pray that you would help us to take these things and carry them forward to the people around us and the people that will come after us, so that nobody has to walk through this book blind, that they would stand on our shoulders one day. So Lord, help us to be great keepers of your truth and history and the things that help others come to know you. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, gang, that's what I got for you guys today. Let me throw some tunes up. You keep your comments coming as always. And don't forget, see you tonight on the big Zoom. It's going to be a fun one.
We lift up a shout, we lift up a shout of praise. Let the anthem rise up, let the song ring out, let the ground now tremble as we raise a shout. Let the anthem rise up, let the song ring out, and let the ground now tremble as we raise a shout. Oh, there's only one name. We lift up a shout, we lift up a shout. Oh, together we sing. We lift up a shout, we lift up a shout.